At my graduation party, my brother lifted his glass and said, "Hard to believe you made it. You'll probably still end up without a job." My dad chuckled. I said nothing. That night, I pulled my name off his loan application. At 9:12 a.m., they called. "Your approval's gone." 10 minutes later, my brother texted in all caps. I didn't even want a graduation party. I told my mom it wasn't necessary, that it was just a waste of money, but she insisted, said it was a family milestone. Never mind that I covered most of the costs because she and my dad were between paychecks again. That was their favorite phrase lately. My brother didn't pitch in either. Not a cent. The party was in our backyard. Same old sagging string lights. Half of them dead. Folding tables borrowed from our neighbor. Food from a Costco run I paid for. There were a few cousins, 2 of my mom's work friends, and my dad's coworkers who smelled like cheap beer and kept calling me Harold. It was the kind of party where everyone claps when someone raises a glass, even if they're about to say something awful, like my brother did. He stood up holding a solo cup, grinning like he was at a roast. Everyone went quiet. He raised the cup and said, "Crazy, you finished. You'll probably end up jobless anyway." Laughter, but only from my dad. Loud and careless, like he actually thought it was clever. My mom didn't even flinch, just kept chatting with one of her friends like nothing had happened. I stood there for a second, trying not to let it show that my ears were burning. I didn't say anything. I just left my plate on the table and walked back inside. They were all out the next morning. My parents had some appointment downtown. My brother was off meeting a friend, too. Talk business, which was code for standing around in a GameStop parking lot for 2 hours. I had the house to myself for once. No yelling, no questions, no requests for money, so I did it. Logged into the loan portal and pulled my name off the application. The laptop was expensive, almost $3,000, and he couldn't qualify on his own. I had agreed to co-sign 3 weeks earlier because he told me it was for his online classes, but I'd never once seen him log into anything other than games. I was the idiot that still thought helping him was my responsibility. That ended right there. At 9:12 a.m., he got the call. Loan declined. Co-signer removed. At 9:22, I got a text. All caps. "What did you do?" Then another. "Dude, you screwed me." Then silence. By noon, I had 4 missed calls from my mom, 2 from my dad, and 1 from a number I didn't recognize, but was probably my brother using a friend's phone. I didn't answer any of them. Just kept refreshing the rental listings tab I had opened. By the time they all got back that evening, they were already boiling. I could hear them talking outside before they even stepped through the door. My dad came in first, pacing like he was warming up for a fight. My mom followed, asking if I'd lost my mind. My brother slammed the front door behind them. I was sitting at the kitchen table eating cereal. My dad asked what the hell I was thinking. My mom wanted to know why I'd humiliated the family. My brother started ranting about how I ruined his credit. I just told him I wasn't paying for anyone's mistakes anymore. My brother said I was selfish. My mom said I'd never make it on my own. My dad just shook his head and said I owed them everything. That they raised me. That they gave me a roof. I almost laughed. I'd been covering the electric bill for a year and had paid for our internet every month since I was 19. But I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just said, "I'm not doing this anymore." I left the table, went to my room, locked the door, and started looking at apartments. My grandfather had warned me this would happen for years. Every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, he'd pull me aside and say the same thing. "You need to get out of that house. They're not your responsibility. They're your burden." I used to think he was exaggerating. Now I knew better. I was 22. I graduated, and I was done pretending this was a family that cared about me beyond what I could give them. This was the last time I'd let them take anything from me. They didn't speak to me the next day. Not in words anyway. But I could feel it in the way they moved around the house. My mom slamming cupboards. My dad sighing loudly every time he walked past my door. My brother making sure to let out these dramatic, disgusted scoffs from the hallway. It was supposed to make me feel guilty. It didn't. That morning, I called in sick to my part-time job and spent the whole day comparing apartment listings. I had some savings, just under $5,000, mostly from tutoring, freelance stuff, and saving every dollar I could while living under their roof. The plan had always been to move out eventually, just not this soon. But something had changed. The graduation party, that toast, the loan, their reaction. I couldn't unsee it anymore. I wasn't family to them. I was a resource, a wallet with legs. I ate dinner in my room. Heard them eating downstairs without me, not even bothering to knock. That part stung a little, but not enough to stop me. The next morning, my grandparents showed up. I heard their car before I saw it. My grandpa always drove this old Dodge Charger that sounded like it ran on thunder. I looked out the window and saw them both getting out. My grandpa in his denim jacket. My grandma clutching a Tupperware of something she probably knew I liked. They walked straight up the front steps like they owned the place. I stayed in my room at first, just listening. And it didn't take long. I could hear my grandpa's voice deep and sharp. He was laying into them. Something about how they treated me. Something about the loan. Something about how they should be ashamed. Then came my dad's voice, defensive. My mom's, sharp and piercing. My brother trying to wedge himself into a conversation he had no place in. And then my grandfather again, louder this time. I stepped into the hallway just as he said, "You've turned that house into a leech pit." My grandma looked up at me, gave the smallest nod, and asked, "You ready?" I walked downstairs. My grandfather pressed an envelope into my hand without a word. My dad immediately demanded to know what it was. I opened it right there, $8,000 in cash. $8,000. The room froze. My dad stared at it like I'd betrayed him. My mom stepped forward and said, "Why are you giving that to him?" My grandfather didn't even glance her way. He just turned to me and said, "Use that to get out. The sooner the better." My brother started shouting about how he'd asked for money to fix his car and was told no. My mom dragged up the time they'd needed help with the mortgage and my grandparents wouldn't step in. My dad accused them of favoritism. My grandmother cut in. "We didn't give you anything because you'd waste it. We gave it to Henry because he needs it." Then she looked straight at me and added, "And because he's the only one worth a damn in this house." That was the spark. The room erupted. Shouting, blame, old grudges hauled out like skeletons. I slipped back upstairs with the envelope, closed my door, and sat on my bed. For the first time in years, I felt like I had a way out. The next 2 days, I hunted for apartments like it was a job. I found a place in a nearby city, 20 minutes away. Rent was $1,200 a month. Doable. Best part? No roommates. Just me, my space, my rules. I signed the lease that same week. When I told my parents, you'd think I'd declared war. My dad called it reckless. My mom said I was abandoning the family. My brother bet I wouldn't last 2 months. I didn't argue. I just started packing. It wasn't hard because I was sad. It was hard because almost everything I owned had been absorbed into the house. My mini fridge was in the garage, filled with my dad's beer. My chair was in my brother's room because his broke, and he just took mine. My charger was always behind the couch downstairs, claimed by whoever got there first. Even my noise-canceling headphones were buried in my mom's laundry basket, under unmatched socks, and no one apologized or offered to help. They acted like my leaving was an insult. I pulled boxes from the attic, folded clothes, wrapped up my laptop in gear. At first, no one commented. But once the tape came out and the boxes stacked by the door, they knew. One night, my dad walked into my room, stared at the boxes, and asked flatly, "What's all this?" "I found an apartment." I said that. He stood there like he was working out a riddle. Then finally, "So you're just leaving?" Just like that. I didn't say much. Just nodded. He glanced around the room again, then muttered, "So you're going to leave us with everything?" Everything. Meaning the internet bill I'd covered for the last 3 years. The utilities I chipped in for every month. The groceries, the gas, the midnight pharmacy runs. The money I loaned my brother that never came back. That was their version of everything. I just said, "Yeah, I am." He walked out without another word. The next morning, the power in my room mysteriously cut out. Just my room. I checked the fuse box. One switch flipped. I flipped it back. It wasn't an accident. I didn't bother saying anything. If I had, it would have turned into another fight, them swearing it was coincidence and me being dramatic. Then came the rest of the games. Trash appeared outside my door, empty bottles, greasy fast food bags. I cleaned it up, more showed up the next day. My mom started hogging the washer and dryer whenever I needed them, saying things like, "Oh, I didn't know you needed it right now. You should have said something earlier." My brother blasted music at full volume during my work calls. He locked the bathroom and took 40-minute showers the second I got home. Dinner became theater. They'd talk around me, about me. My brother cracking jokes about people who can't handle adulting. My mom tossing out lines like, "Guess we'll see how long he lasts." My dad didn't even bother with words. He just shook his head at me like I'd already failed, but I didn't stop. Every night, I added more to the boxes. Labeled them in thick marker: kitchen, desk stuff, bathroom, clothes. Each one felt like a step closer to freedom. I even rented a small storage unit nearby for the things I couldn't take right away. The day before moving, I sat at the kitchen table for a minute just to see if anyone would say anything. Nothing. My mom stood up and left. My dad stayed glued to his phone. My brother tossed an empty soda can near the trash, didn't even check if it landed inside. I went back upstairs and finished sealing the last box. That night, my grandfather called. Said he and Grandma would be there at 8 a.m. sharp, bringing his truck and some rope for the furniture. Asked if I needed help with the heavy stuff. I told him I had most of it under control, but yes, his help would mean everything. He was quiet for a second, then said, "You're doing the right thing, Henry. They'll be angry, but don't let that stop you." After a pause, he added, "I'm proud of you." I just sat there, holding the phone, letting it sink in. No one else had ever said that to me. Not once. That I was awake before sunrise, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling like it owed me something. My alarm was set for 7 o'clock, but I didn't need it. I hadn't really slept anyway. My bag was already packed, my last box sealed, stacked by the door. This was it. The day I'd been counting down to in silence for weeks. The house was quiet. That strange, heavy quiet that only happens when everyone's gone or still asleep. That I checked the clock. 6:11 a.m. I stood up, walked to the window, and looked down at the driveway. Empty. I still had a couple of hours before the storm. I carried the boxes down in silence. 3 trips, careful not to wake anyone. At 8:03, I heard the growl of my grandpa's Charger. He stepped out in work gloves, Grandma with bagels and gas station coffee. No fuss, just helped. By 8:40, we were strapping down the last load when my parents' car pulled in early. My dad slammed the door. My mom ignored my grandparents. My brother stumbled out half asleep. My dad stood in front of the truck. "So this is what you're doing now?" I kept working. Grandma cut in. "Sure is. He's doing what none of you ever had the guts to." Mom laughed bitterly. My brother tried to claim one of my boxes, my Xbox. I told him it was mine, and he smirked like he'd win. Grandpa stepped up beside me and said one word: "Move." The smirk vanished. My brother backed off, muttering. My parents said nothing, just drifted back inside till we finished loading. I walked through my empty room one last time. After 22 years, it had never really felt like mine. I carried the last bag down. No one said goodbye. Half a block away, my phone buzzed. A group text from my mom. "Don't expect to come back when this falls apart." I muted it, looked ahead at my grandparents' truck, and followed. The new apartment wasn't fancy. Crooked mailboxes, faded shutters, but it was quiet. Mine. The first key no one else in my family had. We unloaded. Grandpa worked steady. Grandma organized and wiped down the fridge. Around noon we sat on the floor, eating bagels, drinking cold coffee. Grandpa looked around and said, "This place feels clean." I knew what he meant. I told them my family wouldn't be invited over. They just nodded. Then Grandma handed me a small envelope and said, "We saved this for you." Grandpa gave me a look that said, "Don't argue." Grandma handed me another envelope. "Just take it." Inside was $500. "For groceries, maybe a microwave," she said. I thanked them. They stayed an hour, helped set up the router, tested outlets, even checked the smoke detector. Before leaving, Grandpa said, "You won't miss them as much as you think." I told him, I already don't. After they left, I laid on the mattress, staring at the ceiling. The silence felt strange at first, then natural. No slamming doors, no late-night arguments, no footsteps meaning someone wanted something. Just quiet. That night, I ordered pizza, ate off a box, and it felt better than any meal I'd had at that house. My parents never called. No text, no check-in. On Monday, Grandpa helped me grab the last of my things from the garage. My brother had shoved them into a trash bag. My parents' cars were in the driveway, but no one came out. As we pulled away, Grandpa said, "They think you'll be back in a month." I told him, let them wait. Back home, I unpacked, showered without interruption, and slept like a rock. For the first time, I didn't dream of escape. I dreamed of what came next. There was no goodbye. Not when I moved, not when I returned, not in the days after. That silence told me everything.